Good morning, good morning. Sorry. Good, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Chaf Aleph. I understand you got a couple of lines down on the daf. We're actually going to start from the first line of the daf. We'll just do a quick recap of the sugya down to the 11th line, so we could jump right into the sugya. Our shir this morning and our shiurim this month are dedicated by Leah's soul in the zechus of Rafu Shalima for her daughter, Ilana Bas Esther. We hope that Ilana Bas Lei, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, she together with Kol Chole Yisrael will have a complete and enduring refuah. So we'll say, so let's go. Amar Rava. So remember again, very quickly, because I know this is just going to be Chazara from yesterday. So Rava said as follows. Remember again, we're dealing with the issue specifically of Malika. And ultimately, again, how it could be that you could have a proper Malika without essentially rendering the animal an avela. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Ima, v'cheinu osa. This indeed is the process for Malika. Chotech shedra umafrakes below rov baser. We'll say ultimately, again, the process for Me'ila is, for Malika, is you go ahead and you cut the spinal cord, the back and the mafrakes, without the surrounding flesh. So therefore, again, I will say, under these circumstances, ultimately, one is able to go ahead and break through the spinal cord while still allowing the animal to remain alive. As long as that flesh remains intact, so ultimately, again, the animal remains alive. Kisalik Rabbi Zira, Ashkechel Rabbi Ami, the Yosef v'ka'amar laha shmaisa. So we'll say, so when Rabbi Zera went to Eretz Yisrael, he found Rabbi Ami, who was sitting and giving over this same ruling. So we'll say, in other words, Rabbi Ami was giving over the same basic process for Malika, to go ahead and ultimately cut through the spinal cord while still keeping the majority of the flesh intact. V'ka'amar laha shmaisa amar v'chi meisa omeid umolik. So he said to him, ultimately, again, if the animal is dead, or if the animal is already dead, can you continue the process of Malika? So we'll say ultimately again he was like dumbfounded for a moment, didn't know what to answer. He said, no, this is what you have to do. Below rov basar. Ultimately, again, what is it that you're supposed to do? You cut through the shedra and the mafrakes, you cut through the neck, as well as through the spinal cord, and ultimately, again, leave the majority of the flesh surrounding the spinal cord intact. That way, on a technical level, the animal is still alive throughout the process, or through the process of Malika. Ta'ina mihachi. Also, you have a brayso that supports this as well. Keitzad molkin chata sof. So we'll say, so again, so now what we've just established is something exceptionally important, which is the entire process for Malika. So it appears, based on what the Gemara is saying over here, is that we're going to cut through the shedra and the mafrakes while leaving the flesh, what the Gemara is calling the flesh, which is really the nerves, intact. So that way the animal, again, does not automatically become an avela. Just as soon as the neck is broken, but rather, again, is able to remain alive. So the Gemara says as follows. Good. Tanya nami hachi. We have a brayso that supports this idea. Kitzad molkin chatasov. So also we're going to spend some significant amount of time today discussing the chatasov. Again, not as much from from a carbonic perspective, but much more from a shchita perspective. So watch this. Kitzad molkin chatasov. How do you go ahead and do the chatasov? How do you perform this process? Also, again, remember, chatasov is that there are certain sin offerings where they're what we call a variable offering. That halacha l'maisa, depending on your financial station, will ultimately determine the nature of the carbon you bring. Everything from an animal, going all the way again to a mincha, to a meal offering. The step above a meal offering will be an oaf, will be a bird. So keitzad molkin chatasov. How do you do proper malika on a chatasov? Chotech shedra umafrakes below rov basar. You go ahead and you cut through the shedra and the mafrakes while leaving the majority of the flesh intact. Ad Shemagia leveshet o lekana. Both until you get to the veshet or to the kana, right, to the veshet or to the kana. So says the Gemara says, Higia leveshet o lekana. If you get to the trachea or the esophagus, then what? Chotech siman echad o rubo v'rov basrim. So you must remember again, the tricky part about malika is that what? Is that we've discovered, that at least according to the Gemara over here, you want to be able to cut through the spinal cord, the backbone, as well as one of the simanim. So remember again, the challenge we got to is what? We always thought that once you break the backbone of the animal, of the bird, so what happens? The bird is dead. If the bird is dead, then halacha lamaisa, again, by the time you cut one of the simanim, you're cutting the siman on a dead bird. That's why the Gemara devised this particular process by saying that what? You cut through the shedra, the mafrekes, leave intact the rov basa, the majority of the flesh surrounding the shedra mafrekes, and then after you go ahead and you get through the spinal cord, cut one of the simanim, and when you cut one of the simanim, ultimately then you cut rov basar imo. Then you go ahead and you cut the majority of the flesh surrounding the spinal cord along with it. So the Gemara says, I will say, by a bird, specifically by a sacrificial bird, the halacha is all you need is siman or rov siman. All you need, again, is the trachea or the esophagus. You do not need both, and you don't even need a complete one. Rather, again, you just need the majority. So I will say one more time. Keitzad molkin chatas off. How do you go ahead and do malika and chatas off? Chotech shedra umafrekes below of basar. You cut through the shedra and mafrekes without the majority of the flesh. Ad shemagia leveshet olakana. Until you get to until the esophagus or the trachea. Higila veshet or the kana, chotech siman echad. You get to the veshet or to the kana. We'll say again, cut either one you want. Chotech siman echad o rubo, or the majority. V'rov basar imo. And ultimately, again, the majority of the flesh surrounding the spinal cord along with it. So we'll say, so this is chatasof, as opposed to uba ola. But I will say, as opposed to ultimately, again, the ola, shnayim orov shnayim. Also, when it comes to an ola, you will go ahead, this is ola sa'of. This is all by birds. When it comes to the ola sa'of, you will shecht 2 simanim, or the majority of 2 simanim. So it says the Gemara, money. Whose opinion is being reflected over here? Irabanan. So we'll say, so what the Gemara is focusing on over here, so let's just take a step back. What we have over here is the process now for chata sa'of and ola sa'of, which are essentially the same. Breakthrough with malika, the mafrekes and the shedra. Go ahead and cut a siman. By chatas, I only need to cut 1 siman, or the majority. By ola, I need to cut through 2 simanim, or the majority. And then when I'm cutting the siman, I cut rov basar imo, the flesh around the spinal cord as well. So we'll say, so money. Whose opinion is being reflected over here? Irabanan. Ha'amri shnayim dafka. So we'll say, so here we go. If it's the Rabbanan ultimately holds that it is not enough to shecht the majority of the 2 simanim. Rather, what do you have to do? The entire 2 simanim. Rabbi Shimon ha'amar rov shnayim. And if it's Rabbi Shimon, ultimately again, he holds that you only require what? You only require rov shnayim. You would never require a full shnayim. So we'll say, so the Brisa doesn't seem to choose a side. So whose opinion is reflected over here? To which the Gemara says, Ima shnayim l'Rabbanan, rov shnayim l'Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. So you could say, you could either read the Mishnah, the Brisa as saying shnayim, and it would reflect the view of the Rabbanan, or rov shnayim, and it would reflect the view of Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. V'boisim, the other possibility is, Vaha Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. Both can reflect the view of Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon, and how so? My shnayim, what does it mean when it says 2 simanim? Shedomim l'shnayim. You have to shecht it in a way that it resembles like you're shechting 2 simanim. What does it mean? A way that resembles you're shechting 2 simanim. I will say, rov. When you shecht the majority of something, it's ki'ilu, it's as if you have shechted both of the simanim in their entirety. Good. So I'm Rabbi Yochanan. So we'll listen to this. So again, so what we have over here so far is very important. It appears that we have come to a conclusion as to what the proper process of malika is. That's number 1. Now that we've also been introduced to the distinction between chata sa'of and ola sa'of. Chata sa'of, same process for malika, but you need to go ahead and shecht one of the simanim. Ultimately, again, Ola Sa'of, you're going to have to shecht 2 of the simanim. According to the Rabbanon, it's 1 whole siman, 2 whole simanim. According to Rabbi Elazar and Shimon, majority of 1 siman, majority of 2 simanim. Good. You'll keep that in mind because we're going to circle back to this in just a little bit. I'm Rabbi Shmuel. I'll say weiter. So if you says the name of Shmuel, the following halacha. Nishbara mafrekes verov basar ima metayah ba'al. This is actually talking about a person. Let's say, chas v'shalom, a person sustains a traumatic injury, and what happens? The spinal cord is broken with the majority of the flesh surrounding it. So what's the halacha? Mitame ba'ohel. Now, we'll say mitame ba'ohel means what? Means what? That essentially we treat him as dead, even if he presents as alive. Now, we'll say what we're going to see is, we know that halacha l'maisa, or just practically speaking, even after an organism is dead, it can still continue to move. Sometimes those movements are mistaken for signs of life. We'll see this by shchita, we'll see it by people. Ultimately, again, the Gemara says, once the spinal cord is broken and the majority of flesh is broken along with it, that person is dead. And therefore, again, if you're under the same roof with him, ultimately, again, he conveys tumas ohel. Even if his body is moving, he is dead. So the Gemara says, Ve'im tomar, osa maisa de'eli, dimafrekes belorov basar havi. Supposed to listen to this. You'll point out the case of Eli. This is actually amazing. So remember again, the episode with Eli, in Sefer Shmuel, right? Ultimately, again, remember Eli's sons, Chafni and Pinchas, who unfortunately took some wrong turns in life, ended up making a dramatic mistake of taking the Aron, the ark, out to war against the Plishtim. Remember again, this is the incredible battle where the ark is taken by the Plishtim. Chafni and Pinchas are killed by the Plishtim. Ultimately, word gets back to Eli. Eli is sitting in his high chair, his throne in Shiloh, falls off his chair, the lashon of the Navi we're going to see in just a moment, and it appears he breaks his neck. Rashi says, Ve'im tomar, Rashi says, Ha'eli mafrakes below rov basar hava, v'karile meis, v'tishbar mafrakto v'yama. So also by Eli it says that Eli's spinal cord broke. Now what it sounds like over here is that Eli broke his neck bone without rov basar. And yet what? He died. So the Gemara is bringing this as a raya that one could break the spinal cord even with the majority of the flesh intact, right, attached, and yet still die. To which the Gemara says, Eli's different. Zikna shiny. When a person is very old, Rabosai, so again, the breaking of the neck bone itself, even without the surrounding flesh, is enough to result in death. This because the pasuk says, "Vayhi kaskiro es aron elokim." When they told Eli that the ark of Hakadosh Baruch Hu was seized, "Vayipol me'al hakise acharonis," he fell backwards off his chair. Be'ad yad hashar, ultimately again by the entranceway of the city. Vatishbar mafrakto vayamas. His neck bone broke and he died. Why? Ki zakein ha'ish v'kaved. So apparently, again, because he was old and he was heavy. Whether heavy means that he was heavier, or heavy just means that because ultimately, again, of his advanced age, sometimes when you're falling, just you redistribute your weight. And because he was older, he was unable to do that. Therefore, again, the breaking of the backbone, even though it left the surrounding flesh intact, ultimately, again, was enough to kill him. So the Gemara says as follows. So also, therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, the Gemara says that if a person sustains chas v'shalom, a traumatic injury where the neck and the surrounding flesh is broken, that person halachically is considered to be dead and will be metame tumas ohel. So the Gemara gives another case. Next case. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Karu kidag. What's another dramatic case? You cut a person open like a fish. So metami ba'ohel. We're not encouraging it, just saying if it happens. Metami ba'ohel. Ultimately, again, such a person is metami tumas ohel. So we'll say if a person is, we're going to see what this means in just a moment. Person chas v'shalom is cut open like a fish. He is also considered to be dead. Considered to be dead. Person cannot survive such an injury like this. So the Gemara says, Yitzchak umigava. So we'll say this would be talking about a situation where essentially a person is cut from head to toe. So the Gemara qualifies this furthermore by the back. If a person, chas v'shalom, were to be sliced open by the back, ultimately, again, all the way down, that would be a person cannot survive that type of injury, and therefore be metame tumas ohel. Amar Shmuel, next case. Asa gistera. So this is actually an interesting case here. Asa gistera, Rashi says, shechat chal rachba obit savara kula obeshedra adachala. So we'll say gistera means cut in half. Cut in half. Now, half, by the way, doesn't have to necessarily be literally the middle of the body, but it means that ultimately, again, into two pieces. Sa'asa gistera nevela. So we'll say this is talking about over here by an animal, right? If you cut an animal in half, so such an animal ultimately, again, is considered to be a nevela. Is considered to be a nevela. Next case. Amar Belazar, nital hayerach. This is another very interesting case. What happens if halacha l'maisa, the thigh was removed? Now we're going to see what this means in just a moment. The chalal shala nikar. And I will say the cavity itself, ultimately again is recognizable. What's the halacha? Nevela. The animal is considered to be an avela. I will say, now let's analyze this for just a moment. Hechi dami chalal shala nikar. So I'll say, what does it mean ultimately again that the cavity is recognizable? Amarava, kol sheravutza veniris chasera. It's any animal when if it was to squat down, it would be clear that the leg was missing. So we'll say what it's referring to over here is as follows. If you were to go ahead and remove the leg of an animal all the way up essentially to the socket, I don't know what to tell you, to all, meaning, right, to the body of the animal. In other words, that the entire leg and thigh is missing to the body, to the point of where the actual body of where it connects to the body of the animal. To the point that we'll say what it means is that even when the animal is crouching down, you see normally when an animal is crouching down, you can't necessarily see its legs because they're folded under it. If you were to remove the leg in such a way that even when the animal is crouching, you can see that the leg is missing, Halacha l'maisa, the Gemara says, such a situation like that, the animal is an avela. So apparently I will say that is enough of a traumatic injury to the animal that the animal will not survive that particular injury, and therefore again it has the status of an avela. Good. Rashi says nevela va'afilu bechayeha mitama. Well, it's actually quite a dramatic statement. Even while the animal is alive, ultimately again it will go ahead and convey tumas nevela. Tinan Hasam. We'll say another case. Tinan Hasam. Hudzu Rosheyan. It's all very interesting cases. The head was chopped off. Now we'll say this is by animals. Hudzu Rosheyan, Rashi says, Bishmona Shrotzim Kamari B'Seder Taras. Actually over here, the Gemara is quoting from a Mishnah in Meseches Taras. So the Gemara says, or Seder Taras. So the Gemara says as follows, actually quoting from Olos, Hudzu Rosheyan. Let's say you have, now Rashi says, it's talking about over here, shratzim. Remember again, shratzim are creepy, crawly things, which ultimately again convey tumah, or can convey tumah. So the Gemara says, if their heads are chopped off, chutzu roshein, afapi shemefarchisin timein. Even though both say they are moving. I don't know what the technical term is, right? If something moves after it, No, but I'm saying, I think there's a scientific term for movement that occurs after death. Okay, whatever it is. So the Gemara says, Husu Rosheyan, if ultimately, again, the head of in this case, the sheret is chopped off, Afal Pishem Farchisin, even though, again, the body of the animal is still moving, Timeim. Ultimately, again, the animal is Tameh. The animal is Tameh. So the animal conveys Tumah. Why? Kizanav halta shemefarcheses, because this is like the tail of a lizard. Everyone knows that what happens if you chop off the tail of a lizard, it continues to move, even though clearly, again, I will say, the tail of the lizard is not alive anymore after it is detached from the lizard. So we must point out, we see this concept that movement is not the equivalent of life. That you can have a situation ultimately, again, where what? Where halacha l'maisa there is movement, but the organism is already considered to be dead. So the Gemara says, my chutzu. So let's analyze this. So therefore, again, in the case of these shratzim, in the case of these creepy crawly things, so the halacha is, once you remove the head, so ultimately, again, they have the ability to convey tumah, even though the body is still moving. So my chutzu. So when we say that you're chopping off the head of the sheretz, what does this refer to? So the Gemara says two different opinions. Reish Lakish Amar, chutzu mamish. Reish Lakish says exactly as it sounds. Literally, the head is actively being removed from the rest of the body. My name is Reish Lakish Amar, chutzu mamish. Rabbi Asi Amar Rabbi Mani kehavdalas olas haof. No, chutzu doesn't have to literally mean that the head was detached, that the animal was decapitated. Rather, it could mean like the removal of the head by olas haof. I will say, what's the pshat by olas haof? So we'll see in just a minute what this means. So we'll say, obviously, in this context, the Gemara sounds like what it's saying over here is as follows. That when we say that the head is decapitated, it could either mean decapitated mamish or ke'olas haof. Now, we'll say what it sounds like is that, what does it say about olas haof? That it's not totally and fully decapitated. So the Gemara says, sorry. So the Gemara says, Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabasi, Kavdalas olas of the Rabbanon, velo pligasu, O Dilma Kavdalas olas of the Rabbi Shimon upligasu. So we'll say, now watch this. See, here we get into it. Now, we'll say, we're going to get into olas. So remember again, going back to what we said before, halacha l'maisa, what did we discuss? The distinction between ola sa'of and chata sa'of. Remember that distinction. Ola sa'of, we'll say, ultimately again, required the one siman, two simanim, right? Yes, ola sa'of was two simanim, chata sa'of was one siman. So we'll say, so now what we're going to see is there's a machlokes ultimately again between the Rabbanon, and we already saw it already, the Rabbanon and Rabbi Elazar ben Reb Shimon. When it comes ultimately again to olas ha'of, do you require two full simanim or do you require rov simanim? Look at Rashi for just a moment. Kavdalas olas ha'of the Rabbanon the Baal call the simanim v'lo pligasa. So we'll say ultimately again, are we talking? So when we are comparing this case ultimately again to the removal of the head of the olas of Rabosai, is that like the Rabbanon who require two full simanim, and therefore again Rabosai it's quite possible that the head of the olas of is removed from the body, or is it like Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon who just requires rov? Now Rabosai, obviously, if you're just requiring rov, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, there is no detachment of the head from the body. Amar lei kavdalas olas of Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon upalginin. So we'll say, so he said it really refers to ultimately again like the removal of the head from the ola sa'of, according to Rabbi Shimon, and ultimately again he's voicing disagreement. Ike de Amri, we'll say others go ahead and explain. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amar chutzu mamish. What Rabbi Shimon says that what's the case? We'll say the case ultimately is that the head is actively and fully removed. Rabbi Asi Amrab Mani Kavdalas Olas over Rabbi Shimon Berov Shnayim. Or Rabbi Mani said the name also ultimately that's what? That is talking about the removal of the head of the Olas Sa'of, like Rabbi Shimon, that the head is not totally removed, but rather again the majority of both simanim is severed. To which the Gemara finally says, My Rabbanon umay Rabbi Shimon. So we'll say now we have to get back to basics. Remember again, so this whole discussion was primarily a discussion about shratzim, that if the head is severed, so the sheretz has the ability to convey tumah. That then led us back to a discussion about olas ha'of. This discussion of olas ha'of really references back to the beginning of our daf today, where we saw again two bird offerings. One a chata sa'of, one an ola sa'of. In the case of chata sa'of, ultimately again, we just have to go ahead and shecht one siman. In the case of ola sa'of, we have to shecht two simanim. What does it mean to shecht two simanim? The Rabbanon will say two full simanim. Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon will say one simon, or the majority. I'm sorry, the Rabbi Shmuel say 2 simanim, but it doesn't have to be the full simon, but rather what? Only the majority of those 2 simanim. So we'll say fundamental machlokes Rabbanan and Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon. When it comes to chatas, do you have to cut through both simanim in their entirety, or is it just enough to cut through the majority of those 2 simanim? Machlokes here. So we'll say, so says the Gemara as follows. Let's analyze this. My Rabbanan, my Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon. We'll say, where do we see this machlokes? Here we go. This Sanya. The Brisa says as follows: Ve'es hasheni ya'as se'olah kamishpat. So we'll say the pasuk over here says as follows. The pasuk is Ve'es hasheni ya'as se'olah kamishpat v'chi paralavakoy mechata so asher chata v'nislach lo. So the pasuk Ve'es hasheni ya'as se'olah kamishpat. So we'll say you shall go ahead and offer up this bird olah kamishpat. Kamishpat means what? In accordance with its rules. So Rashi says over here, if you look, it's the first wide line in Rashi, Kamishpat, Mashma Shekatzev HaMishpat B'makom Acher. So what that sounds like is that the laws of the Olah Sa'of, have already been delineated elsewhere. Where have the laws of the Olah Sa'of already been delineated? To which the Gemara says, Kamishpat Chatos Behema. It's been delineated already in accordance with the laws of the chatos of a behema. So we'll say, so if you finish that Rashi says over kamishpat, mashvish shakatov hamishpat makom acher v'hechakoi. What is it referring to? Achatos behema dela elkoi. Shari olazu ba chalipin lo hilchach la aksha v'yolef minek mefarish lekamei de'ina ba elaminachos. Let's listen to this. Remember, when do you bring, we'll say, a chatas off? When do you bring an olah as a chatas? Only if you're not able to afford a behema. Right? It's brought as a substitution if you can't afford a behema. So the Gemara says it must be therefore because olah sa'of is a substitution for olas behema. Therefore, the laws of olah sa'of are learned out from olas behema. So the Gemara says, chatas behema, So the Gemara says, kamishpat chatas behema. Atomer kamishpat chatas behema. So you're going to tell me you're going to learn out the laws of oaf from chatas behema. O eino ela kamishpat chatas oaf. Or Rabbi saying, no, maybe I'm going to learn out the laws of olas oaf from chatas oaf. Sekishu omer vehikrivo. Rabbi say ultimately again when the pasuk says the word vehikrivo and you shall offer it, right? Ultimately again a reference to olas of nedava, chalak hakasav ben chatas of la olas of. Torah is coming to make a distinction between the halachos concerning chatas of and olas of. If that's the case, I will say when it talks about olas of, mani mekayim kamishpat. Ultimately, again, when the Torah says that the laws of the olas of kamishpat are in accordance with something we learned already before, what is it learning out olas of from kamishpat chatas behema? So we'll say being that olas of comes instead of a chatas behema, so therefore learn out the laws of olas ha'of from chatas behema. How so? Ma chatas behema ena ba'a ela amud beis ena ba'a ela min chullin. So we'll say just like chatas ha'of, just like behema, just like chatas behema only comes from chullin. Right? So we'll say, look at Rashi, ena ela min chullin v'lo mi ma'os meiser sheni. Ultimately, again, it cannot come from Meiser Sheni money, Ubayom, and it can only be brought by day, Ubiyado Hayimanis, and it has to ultimately again be offered up with the right hand of the Kohen. Af Ola Sa'of. So to Rabbosai again, the laws of Ola Sa'of are learned out from Chatas Behema. Again, just so you understand that relationship. We're talking about an Ola Sa'of that is brought as a Chatos. When do you bring an Ola Sa'of as a Chatos? If you cannot afford to bring a behema. Therefore, again, the Gemara is understanding that when the Torah uses the word kamishpat, which tells me that the laws of the olah sa'of are learned out from some pre-existing halachic framework and construct, it makes sense to learn it out from chatos behema, being that again, olah sa'of is brought instead of chatos behema. What do we learn out from also from chatas behema? These 3 halachas. Number 1, that it can only come from Chullin. Number 2, that it can only be offered up by day. And number 3, that it has to be offered up with the right hand of the Kohen. Af olas ola eina ba'a ela min Chullin bayom ubiyado hayimanis. So to again, I will say ultimately again, olas will follow these same halachas, namely that it can only come from unconsecrated monies, has to be brought by day, and has to be offered up with the right hand. Well, if that's the case, so we'll say if that's the case, then why don't they say as follows? Just like by chatos bein, we'll say, what's the halacha? By behema, what do you need for shchita? You need the majority of the two simanim, right? Why don't they say the same thing by what? By olas ha'of, right? Olas ha'of should also require ultimately again two simanim. Talmud lomar umalak v'hiktir. Then we'll say the pasuk says ultimately again umalak v'hiktir. You shall do the malika and you shall burn it. Mahaktara harosh biatzmo v'haguf ba'atzmo. Af malika harosh ba'atzmo v'haguf ba'atzmo. So we'll say just like again. This is actually very interesting. When you burn the olas ha'of, we'll say, so you burn the body and the head separately. So just like when you burn, just like by the burning of the animal, the bird, you burn the head and the body separately, so too the malika must be done in such a way that the body and the head are separated, which I will say means what? That it is not enough to cut through the majority of two simanim, but rather what? The complete two simanim. So although we are learning at halachas of olas ha'of from chatos behema, they will differ in this one major way, that by chatos behema, all you need to do is cut through the majority of two simanim. By olas ha'of, you must go ahead and cut through both simanim in their entirety. Rabbi Shmuel says, kamishpat, so we'll say, remember again, Rabbi Shmuel says when it comes to olas ha'of, so we'll say, everyone's agreeing ultimately again, that the fact that the Torah uses the word kamishpat in accordance with its laws by olas ha'of is telling us that the laws of olas ha'of are learned out from some other pre-existing halachic construct. So Shmuel now comes along and he says as follows, kamishpat, what does that mean? Kamishpat chatas ha'of. In fact, we're going to learn out olas ha'of from chatas ha'of. Ma chatas ha'of mimul oref. Just like we'll say chatas ha'of, the malika takes place from the back of the neck. Af olas ha'of mimul oref. So to will say olas ha'of, also the malik will take place from where? The back of the neck. Ima lahalon molik ve'ino mavdil b'simin echad. So we'll say if that's the case, they will say just like by chatas ha'of, we'll say all you need to do is what? Cut one simin, and you can leave one simin intact. That's halach by chatas ha'of. Af kan molik ve'ino mavdil b'simin echad. So we'll say maybe so too by olas ha'of. All I have to do is what? Is go ahead and cut through one simin. Talmud lomar v'hikrivo. Therefore, we'll say the pasuk comes along by olas ha'of and says that what? V'hikrivo. You have to offer it, which we'll say means as much as kamish. It's actually very interesting. As much as kamishpat tells me that I'm going to learn out the laws of olas ha'of from where? Some other pre-existing halachic construct. The word v'hikrivo teaches me that olas ha'of still has its unique halachic peculiarities. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, therefore, I'm going to learn out olas ha'of from chatas ha'of. What is that going to teach me? That's going to teach me that ultimately, again, the shchita or the malika of the olas ha'of takes place from the back of the neck. But chatas ha'of only requires one simin. Maybe I'll say that olas ha'of only also requires one simin, to which the word vehikrivo, you shall offer it, tells me that the offering of the olas ha'of is different than the chatas ha'of. And that's what? Chatas only requires one simin, ola requires two simanim. Rabbi Shimon has a different shita. What does he say? Here we go. Kamishpat. So we'll say, remember again, everyone's trying to figure out, ultimately again, from where do we learn out the halachos of olas ha'of from? So kamishpat. What does kamishpat teach me? Kamishpat chatas ha'of. So we'll say, so Rabbi Shimon is actually is agreeing with Rabbi Shmuel in that kamishpat teaches me that the laws of chatas ha'of are learned, the laws of olas ha'of are learned out from chatas ha'of. So we'll say, I wanted to point out something very interesting over here. Before we go on, so remember again, here's what we have we have a three-way machlokes, as we're going to see in just a moment. What everyone's agreeing with is that what? The word kamishpat by olas ha'of teaches me what? That I'm learning out the halachos of olas ha'of from somewhere else. The first opinion quoted over here, right, the Rabbanan, ultimately again are understanding that we're learning out the laws of chatas ha'of from chatas behema. I should say, Olas Of from Chatas Behema, right? Why? Because Olas Of, which is, again, I want to be clear, is also a sin offering. It's also a Chatas offering, is being brought in lieu of an animal. And therefore, again, you're learning it out, ultimately, again, from the laws of Behema. The second two opinions seem to understand it is illogical to learn out the laws of Olas Ha'of from an animal offering. Instead, where will you learn out Olas Ha'of from? We'll say what's more logical? Chatas Ha'of. They're just disagreeing in terms of which particular halachos are going to learn out from Chatas Ha'of. So watch this. And I was say, but what's interesting in this particular three machlokes is everyone's agreeing on the construct of the drasha. So Kamishba tells me that the laws of Olas Ha'of are gleaned from somewhere else, but Vehikrivo teaches me that Olas Ha'of still has its own unique identity as well. So here we go. So the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kamishbat, Rabbi say last line Chafalaf Amid Beis, Kamishbat, when the pasuk says Kamishbat, Kamishbat Chatas Ha'of. It means that the laws of Olas Ha'of are learned out from the laws of Chatas Ha'of. Ma lahalon. But just like when it comes to Chatas Ha'of, top of Chaf Beis Amad Aleph, Ochez Barosh, Ubeguf, Umazeh. Well, this is actually very interesting. When it comes to Chatas Ha'of, so we'll just translate this literally, then we'll see what it means. Ochez Barosh, Ubeguf, Umazeh means you hold on to the head and the body of the bird, and you apply the blood on the mizbeach. Sounds like you're squirting the blood. You hold the bird in its entirety in your hand, Umazeh, and you sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. Afkan, so too over here by Olas Ha'of, Ochez Barosh, Ubeguf, Umazeh. You hold on to the head and the body and you sprinkle. Look at Rashi, we'll say for just a moment. Ochez Barosh, Ubeguf, Umazeh. La'achar Malika, so we'll say after the Malika is done, Havya Hazah, Kidichsib Bechatas of Gabi Shmias Kol, Vehiza Midam Achatas. So we'll say fine. So the Gemara then says, My Kamar. What does this mean? Now, what is the Gemara's kasha? Look at Rashi. My Kamar, the ha'ochiz barosh shebeguf mashma shetzarach la'achsan shneim b'soach kaf yado v'lo sagile le'echos barosh o beguf u'minale ha'bechatas. So what this sounds like over here is that for the hazah, I have to be holding the head and the body in my hand at the same time. So what does that mean? So the Gemara says, my kamar, ho'i kamar, ma lahalon, kishu oches harosh beguf, mazeh, afkan. So we'll say, look at Rashi, kishu oches harosh beguf, shemechuber harosh beguf b'shas hazah. Oh, we'll say what it means is as follows. What's the halacha by Chatas Ha'of? We'll say, what's the halacha? One siman. So therefore, again, by definition, when you are doing the blood application, because you've only cut through one siman, therefore what? The head is still attached to the body. So just like by Chatas Ha'of, after the Malika is done, you only cut through one siman, the head is still attached to the body, and therefore when the Hazah is done, the head is attached to the body. So ma'lahalon kishu achuz harosh beguf. When you're holding onto the bird, the head is still attached to the body by the Chatas Ha'of. Afkan, so too ultimately again by the olah. Kishu achuz harosh beguf mazeh. So also when the hazah is done, the head must still be attached to the body by olas ha'of as well. Both look at Rashi. Afkan da'akarcha hekesha lahachi asa. So we'll say ultimately again, therefore the Gemara is suggesting, Rabbi Shimon is suggesting that Allah Chalamayse, just like by Chatas Ha'of, the head has to be attached. See, by Chatas Ha'of, we'll say it's certainly still attached to the body. Why? Because you're only cutting through one siman. So the Gemara is suggesting, just like by Chatas Ha'of, the head is still attached to the body, so too by Olas Ha'of, even though the din is two simanim, the head must still be attached to the body at the time of Hazah. To which the Gemara says, Ima lahalon b'simin echad, afkan b'simin echad. So maybe you'll say, take the limud a little bit further and say that what? Just as halacha l'maisa by Chatas Ha'of, you're only cutting through one siman, so too by Olas Ha'of, you're only cutting through one siman as well. Talmud Lomar vehikrivo. Therefore, we'll say the pasuk says, no, by Olas Ha'of vehikrivo, you shall offer it, which tells us that what? That halacha l'maisa, the halachos of Olas Ha'of are different than Chatas Ha'of. Whereas Chatas only requires one siman, Olas Ha'of will require two. So also we'll stop over here for today. We end off again with this dramatic three-way machlokes about the limud of Olas Ha'of from Chatas, or I should say about the limud of Olas Ha'of, where the halachos are being learned out from, and ultimately again what are the unique peculiarities of it. We will, Me'ez Hashem, continue with this tomorrow.